The Windows 10 end of support fiasco. On October 14, 2025, Microsoft is scheduled to end all support for Windows 10, which is currently running on over 70% of devices worldwide at the time of this video being produced, and we are currently 2 years away from that deadline, so anyone currently running Windows 10 better be keeping an eye on their clock, as time is running out, and that clock's ticking is getting faster and faster as time goes by. However, there is still plenty of time yet before Windows 10 users have to panic or anything. Windows 10 was released to the public on July 29, 2015, succeeding the much-hated Windows 8 and 8.1. Windows 10 saw the revival of the traditional Start menu, which had been removed in Windows 8. Windows 10 also saw the introduction of Windows as a Service. It introduced a new and improved version of the Windows App Store, where users can download and purchase video games and apps. Windows 10 was also praised for better security defenses and better built-in protection, thanks to Windows Defender. However, it was met with some negative connotations, especially since it was the first version to force telemetry onto the user, which means that you cannot completely disable the telemetry included with Windows 10, something that pissed off a lot of privacy-conscious people. Windows 10 got a lot of feature updates up until 2020, when new features had stopped being released for Windows 10. Microsoft was working on the then-new project Windows 10X, however, this was scrapped and reworked onto what we now know as Windows 11, the worst version of Windows by far, with Vista and Windows ME following closely behind. Windows 11 saw the introduction of arbitrary minimum hardware requirements, more tracking and telemetry than ever before, excessive bloatware, adware and spyware, as well as serious bugs and issues that hinder its usability. No wonder the masses are sticking with Windows 10. Sure, it might not be new and flashy like it was back in 2015, but Windows 10 offers more stability and reliability compared to Windows 11. It also offers a far more consistent context menu that makes more sense, and the taskbar is more customizable too, and Windows 10 has far less restrictive hardware requirements. So many millions upon millions of people will continue to use Windows 10, up until it goes end of life, and even then, a lot of people will likely continue using it, even though that will be an unsafe and dangerous thing to do. We've seen this happen with Windows 8.1 and older. People are still running Windows 7, so this goes to show you that things will not be very different when Windows 10 goes end of life. However, malware would have advanced a lot by the time Windows 10 goes end of life, so it will be extremely insecure and not recommended to keep using Windows 10 past its expiry date. Windows 10 does have LTSC editions available, which will receive more support and get updates past the October 2025 deadline, so this is a potential path many people can and will go down. However, it's more likely that people will want to be on the latest and greatest version of Windows. Only those who are poor and cannot afford a new PC or laptop will be the ones stuck in a bad predicament, but even then, you still have choice. The LTSC versions of Windows are more for businesses and enterprises using Windows, not the average home user. They're also aimed at Internet of Things devices, or IoT devices, so unless you have any IoT devices or are a business, it does not make sense to use an LTSC version of Windows. The only advantage to that is getting more security updates past Windows 10's expiry date. However, this could be similar to the situation with Windows XP, where Microsoft said that just because they're using a supported version of XP, at the time, this was the POS Ready Edition 2009, which was a version of XP for embedded systems, and while it did get support through April 2019, this did not mean that it was inherently more secure than Windows XP with its last official patches. The same thing could happen with Windows 10 LTSC. Just because you're using a long-term support version does not mean that the security updates will make it inherently more secure than Windows 10 with its last official patches. Windows 10's end of support could be a huge problem, not only for the home users, but for businesses and enterprises. as they often take longer to upgrade to a newer supported system. Some businesses are still running Windows 7 and older to this day. Due to the costs associated with upgrading computers and systems, it would be cheaper to run an outdated insecure operating system, rather than spend the money necessary to upgrade to a supported release of Windows. This is probably why WannaCry did so much damage back in the day. Lots of systems it infected were running Windows XP, Vista, and 7, all of which had far less protection and security features than Windows 8.1 and later, and a similar thing could happen to Windows 10 when it goes end of life. Next thing you know, medical systems and many systems around the world are being infected with some nasty ransomware, and the reason why, well, these systems are running an unsupported version of Windows, so they are at increased risk to becoming victim of nasty stuff like ransomware, and it's all because companies and businesses, as well as the average Joe, being unable to afford a new version of Windows, simply because they have to buy a new computer just to run the latest and greatest version of Windows. Windows 11 will continue to stagnate in its market share. Meanwhile, Linux will continue to gain, slowly and steadily, but slow and steady wins the race, right? Well, it's not going to be like that for Linux, which is rather unfortunate, but Microsoft, Apple and Google all have their fair share of the pie. In fact, they are the monopolies of the market, so this is why Linux will never become the main OS used on desktops or laptops. But not only that, the whole emphasis of Linux is to have freedom and to be open source, so companies selling Linux to us would take away the free aspect of things. It also means they could shove unwanted apps and bloat onto these systems, ruin the whole ethos of Linux and the open source initiative. So, as good as Linux is, people will never bother switching to it, at least the majority. Yes, there will be a small number of people who will continue to migrate to Linux as Windows is becoming nothing but a garbage disposal unit that's fit for the bin. No offense to Microsoft, and Mac OS is no better. It keeps the users tightly locked into Apple's ecosystem. Not that that's a bad thing, but at the same time, you're stuck with what you've got. So if you're an Apple user, you'd likely know just how free you are to have your computer or iPhone the way you intended. Yep, you really wanted that FaceTime app, didn't you? Apple is also overpriced boutique collector type tech. It's not really any more well-spec'd than your average PC or laptop. In fact, you can buy or build a PC that's better than any existing Apple, and have it for a fraction of the price, or something like that. You get the idea. With the end of support for Windows 10 being almost just 2 years away from now, users will have to start planning ahead for their future. You guys will need to see what's the best route to go down, whether that's migrating to Linux or Mac OS, upgrading to Windows 11 through purchasing new hardware, or save up and build your own PC that can run Windows, Linux, whatever your heart desires. But unfortunately, if you go down the Linux route, you will miss out on some big-name games and software, and you'll have to learn the distribution you go with, which by the way, there are many hundreds to choose from, so good luck picking the one you think best fits you. It's a bit of a wild jungle to explore out there. What do you think about Windows 10's end of support? Do you think this could be a serious issue that Microsoft might have to address, or do you think people will accept things for the way they are and just move on, or will they be intrigued enough to switch to another system, such as Linux, Mac OS, or something else? Let me know in the comments section below. Alrighty, that's it for this video folks. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.